crazy. Studying religion is sick.
I mean, I'm not one that's huge on like studying like Christianity and shit, but like Buddhists and stuff, to like think that you're constantly like reborn and then eventually after thousands and thousands of years and generations that you've gone through that you find enlightenment. Like, I don't know, there's just the ideas that came behind religion. Like, it's one of those things that it's so far-fetched, but it's also so far-fetched that it could possibly be believable. It's like, it's borderline the precipice of like, do I believe it or not? You know what I mean?
Yeah, like what is the actual reason that it can't be feasible? And like
exactly,
there is none for like any religion, which is why I find religion cool. But I also view it, like I said, in a fictional standpoint.
Exactly,
yeah,
but it's one of those things.
Religion, the evolution of religion is also super interesting.
I think the thing
you can
that
see
makes
a lot of the tales kind of evolve as they go on.
Yeah, I think one of the things that makes it really hard nowadays to really get behind religion, I mean, obviously, like I said, I'm 22, so I was born in 2000. I think the hardest thing for me is how heavily involved in science we are nowadays. And, like, the science, like we said, natural selection or evolution, an example of that. Like, it's really hard to get behind the idea of religion nowadays when we have so much more evidence of these things.
Yeah, that's why it comes back to the what I would honestly call the excuse of faith. I think that it is something that can be fallen back on at any point in time, you know, in history with any science that we find. We can literally find the fucking genetic makeup of humans and be able to recreate one in a plastic bag, and like people would still be like, no, God created humans, and like they're like, how else could you explain anything? And you know, like, or there can even be a literal like objective explanation where somebody is saying exactly how certain events in the universe could have created.
It's just a fucking simulation,
a certain
bro.
thing that eventually led to humans being alive. You know, like, it can be there, but like the whole fallback to religion and like the unbeatable point is that you just have to be faithful.
Yeah. I mean, like, honestly, it's not necessarily a bad thing to be like faithful, because eventually at some point in time, like with the unbearable stresses that have come like in the last couple of years, one of the easiest things for like that kind of just helps. I think the one thing is it's kind of like a comfort, right? That's one of the things I've gotten from my friends.
That's like, yeah, that's why it's kind of it exists
to be able to just kind of throw it at something that you don't know if it will take it or not, and just kind of let it off your chest and just give it to a higher power.
Let our
that's
brain
the biggest
rest
thing. Yeah,
on an unsolvable problem.
Yeah, I have made that exact point before, like when I'm talking about religion. Being able to actually just cease responsibility of something, just completely rid yourself of the responsibility of certain things, is absolutely a major reason why religion is so popular. It's because it removes so much of the
relinquishes responsibility.
Right, like you're like, you know, let's say your kid gets cancer and dies, like you can accept that
that's
just
like mind breaking.
It's like completely
but when it's God's plan, it's not. Yeah, once it's God's plan, it's not mind breaking.
It's crazy how easily convinced we are as humans.
It's just, I think that we are so complex that we just need an explanation, and the lack of one is something that most people can't bear.
Now here's an argument to that. What if we think we're so complex, but down in the like grand scheme of things, we're actually just super simple.
Well, it's relative. Like, there could be
exactly.
more complex
I mean, it's all subjective, but it's just one of those things where it's like, I feel like, for me personally, I think that we have to convince ourselves that we're super complex creatures, but at the grand scheme of all things, the only thing that's really separating us is the ability to talk and maybe a couple of lobes in our brain. But other than that, I mean, like, you look at the actual nature of what we do and like sex and like eating and sleeping and drinking water. Other than that, we're no different than any other creature, just the fact that we communicate and have built things.
If you do subscribe to the concept that we are like evolved animals, then I mean, it does make sense. We would just be the next step. We're animals who can speak and reason, and like that. Those are pretty much the two
and the opposed
big things that
but besides that,
true, but in terms of like the complexity of our brain, it's, you know, speech and ideally logical, but reasoning in general are pretty much the two main factors that set us aside. And like you can jump to saying like, oh well, then we're really simple, but I mean, I don't know. It kind of depends how you look at it, because you could, if you see us as just the next step, then we're actually much more complex when compared to the one rung down.
Step.
Yeah,
I mean, the last
I mean,
observable step is like extremely far below us.
What? Yeah, fucking building fire.
Well, it's like I think the last observable step was like the Homo erectus, which was like so
dude, he said homo.
So like mentally incapable compared to what we are that I think
huge jump.
You know, they were more physically capable than we were, but like not anywhere near as mentally capable as we were, and we are the ones that prevailed
evolutionarily. That exactly. I was going to say that once you're smarter, you don't need to be stronger. And simplify.
From a scientific standpoint, yes, 100. I mean, the only thing I was going to say is like, fuck. Or I was going to say something and we kept talking. Fuck. I was going to say something about that. That pisses me off. I hate that train of thought. Goodbye. Go ahead. Continue.
See, if you were autistic, like an evolved human, and you could like have mega super memory, then that would be
then that would never have left your brain.
The complex thinking of an autistic person it's very intriguing.
I find it so astonishing, dude.
That's I give you props for being a psych major. The only reason why I never really pursued it was the fact that like it's not where I wanted to go. It's just always been an intriguing thing.
You're all autistic.
I wouldn't doubt it.
True.
I'm definitely autistic.
Dude, I hope I'm autistic. I literally think that autism is a fucking like evolutionary
it's a superpower,
increase. Bro. Like I think that like autism is people evolving, and some of it is bad and some of it is good, and the bad ones are supposed to die according to natural selection, but they don't die because we
have our tools.
Right, yeah. They're protected by society and what's given to them. But like in nature, the autistic people who, you know, in my definition would be the evolved individuals, they wouldn't need to be protected, and so they would live, whereas the ones who need to be protected currently would die, and that's where evolution comes from, you know, like, but there's no necessity for evolution because nobody ever dies anymore.
Yeah, like, I've noticed in school, like, if an autistic kid's, like, sheltered and shit, they turn out completely different than one that's not.
Yeah, one that's unsheltered is definitely, like, capable of doing a lot more than some other people.
Like, yeah, like, in school
that
I had
also
a
just, like,
disability, but, like, I was in special ed class and shit, but I knew a lot more of what was going on than other kids, and they turned out a lot different.
Yeah. Like I said, well, there's also tiers. I mean, I wouldn't say tiers, but I guess it would be tiers to like autism. there's definitely
let's call
tiers
it what it is,
it.
A spectrum.
Yeah, that's the word I was looking for. That's what I was like. This doesn't sound right, but spectrum.
The autism hierarchy.
But, I mean, you're at the low end. You're at the low end of the spectrum. You're kind of getting the fucking.
But like, you know, with like mutation, where, you know, if we look at mutation, or we look at autism rather as a mutation, as, you know, I think we can all agree that we have evolved much more mentally than we have physically over the past fucking million years.
I mean, you look at how kids are growing now; they're growing like sticks, but they're smart as hell and can adapt very fucking quickly.
Hey, you're a stick.
I'm not going to disagree with that, but I'm just saying that people are getting taller and people are getting a lot better. You look at, like, okay, if we go to evolution, right, I'm going to take, like, Michael Jordan as, like, a big stepping stone for, like, basketball, right? This is just going to go into sports, but you look at Michael Jordan and all the kids that grew up watching Michael Jordan and turn it into the generation that we kind of saw, like, 10 to 20 years after when they started to be able to join the NBA, and now you have people like Steph Curry and like that are evolving the game even more. And eventually in the next 10 to 20 years, we're going to have people that looked up to Steph Curry and eventually, like,